Hello everybody and welcome to the Great Guild Wars 2 Countdown. 23 or 20 days remaining until the launch of 20 days. Jesus, 20 days remaining until the launch of Guild Wars 2. It's getting pretty damn close. We'll be in the teens tomorrow. That's pretty crazy. The footage in the background comes from Arqas Gaming. I'm going to be using a video from them of World vs. World, but there's plenty more on their channel and you can find a link in the description below if you want to check it out. The topic for today, I've just realised, like an hour ago that I've kind of forgotten a couple of the topics recently, which is quite bad. The next one on my list was something a lot of people actually said, their appreciation for female char. The way the ArenaNet have done female char in Guild Wars 2 is reasonably commendable. I think it's quite good. Usually there is a bit of a temptation, shall we say, for a lot of developers in this genre in particular to just create alternate races that people can play as, and when they have to form a female version of that race, they just slap tits on it and makeup often, and then those are the two things, and then they're like, alright, now that's a girl. Look, it's wearing lipstick and it's got a rack. There you go, that's a girl. And that happens all the time. A lot of MMOs are really bad for this kind of thing, and just races in general. A lot of MMOs also, you'll see their other races are really just very much reskinned humans, and there have been a few people criticising the Sylvari in particular for being like that, particularly before their rework of just being kind of reskinned humans. But I do honestly feel, and this kind of goes beyond the scope of just female char, but I do honestly feel like ArenaNet have been pretty good with their races. They are all quite distinct. The worst one I'd say is the Norn, really. They just kind of seem like bigger humans, but even they have some interesting proportions when you really look at them, and you can see that they are quite different. But this is the main thing I think a lot of people say ArenaNet really hit bang on. Female char, their whole design has just clearly been really well thought about, and you really can tell that they did something different. They haven't just thrown makeup on a regular male char or just given them tits. They really have put some thought in it and made it seem believable, which is great. A lot of the char, I feel like ArenaNet, you can see they did a video a while ago where they had all the developers saying, oh, what race do you want to play? And most of them were saying char at the end of the day. I feel like the char have got some nice love with things like that. Like their emotes as well, they look very much like cats when they do /sleep. There's been a lot of thought gone into it, and I do very much agree, and a lot of people did say this. Female char, very, very, very cool idea. And I think what was nice about this was it was kind of unexpected. We saw male char in Guild Wars 1, but never any females, so when we first saw this in Guild Wars 2, it really was a bit of a breath of fresh air. Very cool. Also, because we missed yesterday as well, the next one after that was jumping puzzles on my list. Jumping puzzles, I mean, I'm so happy I put this on a while ago. I've been doing so much coverage of the jumping puzzles lately. I have so much fun with them. It's such a good part of the game. I really, really do enjoy it. This is another thing that a lot of people have been talking about a lot, whether they don't like them. It seems like jumping puzzles are a little bit like Marmite. You either really, really, really like them, or you can't stand them. There are a lot of people out there who just seem to have got it into their heads that they're no good at jumping puzzles and they don't want to participate in that kind of content for Guild Wars 2. If you are someone like that, I would say just give it a shot, because there's no such thing as a person, in my opinion, that is just bad at jumping puzzles, or who is just bad at one particular type of combat or one particular aspect of the game. It's like anything else in this world. You will get better at it, and once you are slightly better at it, maybe you'll come to appreciate and enjoy what everyone else is about the puzzles. I would say that much. I don't like the idea of ArenaNet removing a lot of the complexity out of these puzzles, or just flat out having less jumping puzzles in the game because certain people don't like them so much. I think that if they're going to make them, they should definitely make them for an audience that enjoys jumping puzzles, and make them as fun and complicated and intricate and difficult as they possibly can, because that's what I really get a kick out of while I'm doing them, and I think most people would agree about that. Really cool part of Guild Wars 2. I'm glad it's grown to the size that it is now. If you had told me Guild Wars 2 would have jumping puzzles like this back during Guild Wars 1 days, where we didn't even have jumping, then I wouldn't have quite, I don't think, been able to comprehend the extent that they've put it into the game. It really is cool. It's like they said, right, we didn't have jumping in the first game, we're going to have it in the second, and we're going to make a lot of use out of it. So I do enjoy it, and I think it helps to make Guild Wars 2 a bit more distinct as well out of other MMOs, which do that kind of thing, don't get me wrong, but I don't think this much. I mean, you see all those new achievements they've added to the list since the final stress test that were all there. There's so many. It's going to be brilliant. But anyway, yeah, that's 2 features for today, kind of make up for missing out on other ones. And I've got a fair few questions from you, won't be able to answer all of them. Also, Arianth has just given me so many links that I need to talk about. I'm thinking maybe tomorrow, tell me if you guys would like this idea, I might just do like a community Spotlight Day, where we go through all these links and actually have a good look at them, and I go into a bit of depth about what's going on, because there are so many, and I feel like it's a bit of a shame sometimes just linking them down there and hoping people might click them, because sometimes people have really put a lot of effort into what they're doing. But anyway, right, so the first question comes from Scorch the Villain, who says, "Hey WP, a few things have been dwelling in my mind. I would like to know your thoughts on a few things. 1. Was it revealed how long Guild Wars 2's PvE story will last from beginning to end? Is it months, years, or just a back-to-back chain reaction? Question 2, follow up to that question, if it does expand over the course of years, then do our characters age?" This hasn't been talked about in Guild Wars 2, but it's something cool I think that you've brought up, because it was a bit of a weird thing that happened in Guild Wars 1 as well that ArenaNet got round in some interesting ways. So Guild Wars 1, if you combined the first campaign Prophecies with factions, with Nightfall and Eye of the North and the Guild Wars Beyond stuff that happened thereafter, the story spans a period of Tyria's history of about 10 years, more than that. There was a significant moment right at the start of Prophecies, obviously, where the game jumps 2 years forward into the future, and this whole area of the world that you'd come to know and love when you first created your character is now lost to you forever, which was really cool. There's nothing, it seems, like that in Guild Wars 2. I remember a long time ago, I feel like that's becoming a bit of a catchphrase, actually, I keep saying that, but I do remember a long time ago on the forums where we were all talking about tutorials for the game and how different races would be introduced to the world. A lot of people had interesting ideas about being able to play as your characters in a pre-searing-ish like area, and that was an idea a lot of people enjoyed but never ended up happening, as you now know. The closest thing that we ever got that I think a lot of people were suggesting and liked the thought of was being able to play as a Sylvari inside the Dream, which indeed does happen in-game. You can actually see you are a Sylvari in the Dream. Whether there's a big jump of time from while you're playing as that Sylvari in the Dream to when you actually get out into the real world, I'm not entirely sure how clear it is, but I wouldn't expect it to be too much. And the same can be said for most of those transitions from your tutorial instance to later on. In particular, the Queensdale one with the humans, I think we're all familiar with it. You get knocked out by like this flying bit of debris after you fight the boss, and you wake up later in Queensdale, and there's these people talking about how people have come to visit you while you're unconscious, and I believe they say it's been 3 days. So that's the most explicit we get, just that 3 days. I don't think I've seen it anywhere else. Whether that continues to happen further on in the personal story, they haven't announced. Obviously, these are the kind of things that ArenaNet are trying to keep a little bit more quiet so that there aren't any massive story spoilers. I wouldn't expect them to do this kind of thing, though. As I said earlier, in Guild Wars 1, because it ended up lasting like this huge period of time, there were some oddities, because you were playing as a character that had participated in the initial attack from the Char in Ascalon, and you were playing as a character that could go to certain outposts where certain NPCs were stood around, like Peak and Square, where there were certain NPCs looking for things. These storylines and why those NPCs were there and the actual state of the world 10 years later would be completely different, but because it was like a static game in a way, because it was so instant, you could 10 years later go back to these outposts, and it was like you were also going back in time at the same time, and there was a lot of discrepancies there, and it was very, very kind of weird. So I wouldn't expect ArenaNet to do something like this, but will the same thing happen as more expansions come along? I guess so. I mean, there's going to have to be some passage of time, right? Or else, what are we going to have? A game where 7 expansions have come out by the year 2030, and all of them are about a story that only occurs in like 1 week of Tyrian time? That just doesn't make any sense. The idea of our characters aging is an interesting one, and perhaps a cool feature, but again, I don't think that it would be there. Not just because of the resources, even if we do say ArenaNet do have the time to do it, I doubt they'd have the inclination. So much of Guild Wars 2 is about how you look and making your character look and feel just right. Any kind of aging mechanic might potentially go against that for all the players that want to, you know, play as really beautiful young characters, which at the end of the day is kind of ArenaNet's vision as well. They're not letting us make really old or ugly characters straight away. So whether we would slowly age against our will, I doubt they'd put it in. If it ever was there, which, you know, we're being really speculative at this point, but if it ever was there, it would definitely be an option for players, not a necessity. But yeah, it's an interesting question. How long is it from when you wake up after being in the Dream and are born into the world as a Sylvari till Zaitan's eventual defeat? How long is it? I mean, what, a month, a year? I guess we'll see. There were seasons established in Guild Wars 1. You had the season of the Colossus, of the Phoenix, and so forth, but they haven't really been referred to in lore anywhere in game that I could see, or in any blogs or anything, for a very long time. So maybe ArenaNet are moving away from that, maybe not. We'll see how the passage of time goes when we get in there. The next question is from Have a Kill, or Have a Sill, who says, Shalom, Wooden Potatoes. When playing Beta Weekend Event 3, me and my party found a less traveled traveled zone where all of the mobs gave us over 70 to 95 in bonus experience. I assume there is a cap, but I don't think we found it. Do you know how high the bonus experience cap is? If not, how high do you think it should be? And also treasure maps, and he's given me a link here which you can find in the description below. I didn't hear you talk much about them. Do you have any new information about them, or how it will play out come release? Alright, so the first topic on bonus experience. This is a pretty cool feature of the game. You ask me how high I think the cap should be. I don't think there should be a cap. I think that adds a lot of excitement to the game and a lot of incentive for people to explore and see different things. So, experience in Guild Wars 2, let's first establish, is always important to you as a player. Even at the end of the game, ArenaNet said one of your main motivations for playing PvE is to continue to get these like levels or extra skill points at the end of the game in a similar way to Guild Wars 1, except those are very useful for you in the creation of legendary weapons somehow. So experience is something we really want. Now there is a bonus experience system in the game. Some of you, most of you I guess if you've played the beta, have seen yourselves getting bonus experience. But do you know why? There are various reasons why you could. It could be because of a guild bonus. You could have got an extra thing from that. It could have been something to do with the power of the mists, if that was even appearing in the beta weekend events. I don't think it was. But the main reason why you would be getting bonus experience is because they have a mechanic here where the longer an enemy is alive for, like the longer it exists on the world without any player ever finding it or killing it, slowly this number goes up, the amount of experience it rewards you for. So what this means is a lot of those enemies that are out in seemingly random or secluded corners of the map that you would have no reason to go to because there's no events there, no hearts or any points of interest or vista or anything, no waypoints, no reason to go there at all, actually you might want to go there because you'll find perhaps a veteran mob just stood around in some place, and if you kill it, it will give you a ton of bonus experience because no one else has thought to go there. So what this is a really cool kind of self-balancing mechanic here that encourages players to spread out and explore those small areas and fight things in those areas and feel like they've actually accomplished something and been rewarded for going to these places without ArenaNet having to physically drop little rewards and chests all over the whole goddamn map. I think that is such a good idea, and it's a really nice system that's in there. And the reason why I say I don't think there should be a cap is because if you are the first player to find a monster that's been hidden away in some corner of the world that no one's found for like a week in real time, I think you should be rewarded for that. That should be a really, really good moment. And I love the idea that the game could fill people with this excitement, this potential, this possibility that there are these great bonuses and extra treasures to be found out in the world. If you put a cap there, then people are going to find out the cap and they will begin to assess, do I really care about this? Do I care about the cap or not? And it doesn't quite work as you stretch things across 80 levels as well. If they decide that the cap is 400 experience, then fine, that may be tons. You know, if you're only level 1 and you get 400 experience, that could be loads and you could be really incentivized to go for it. But at level 80, that's not going to be a good incentive for you. And particularly at level 80, then that's when you're going to be wanting to find experience mostly. So no, I don't think there should be a cap. I think if there was a cap, it would have to scale with the areas that the enemies are found in, and indeed if you think about it, that scaling will already kind of be there in game because it would need to scale faster for higher level enemies, so you're not getting like 2,000 experience from a kill and yet only 20 bonus experience because the bonus experience creeps up so slowly. It would have to scale in some way there, but I think it's a fantastic system and they shouldn't put a cap on it. And you're asking, do I know the cap? I don't actually know the cap. I'm not sure anyone knows the cap at this point. If they do, leave me a comment and I will correct myself next episode. The other thing you talked about, treasure maps. This is another cool feature that's kind of along the same lines. I like that you've asked about both these two things at the same time. This is another feature that acts as an incentive for people to go to weird places in the game that things might not necessarily usually be. So a treasure map is an item that you can acquire. I'm not actually sure where you're supposed to get it from. It was on a couple of websites that people had found it. I don't know whether that was from data mining or what, but there is a screenshot of this item and I have no idea how to actually acquire it in game. But basically what it does is it will be there in your inventory and it looks like a consumable, and what you do is you double click it and it will place an X on your map, and it would be your goal to find this X, like X marks the spot for some treasure, and when you got to that location you could like dig or you'd find a chest or something there that would give you a reward, and perhaps those rewards might even be unique to this system here, this treasure system. And from the way it sounds described, it also seems like this could have been a somewhat randomized thing, so this treasure thing could appear anywhere. Maybe ArenaNet would have set up some predetermined locations that they could appear, but they would have been anywhere on the world, and it would be something of a quest, something more like a traditional MMO quest where you would have to get to a location and you would have a reward there. And actually, I've got to be perfectly honest, I feel like the game could really use something like this. Dynamic events are great for a lot of things, but the one thing that they do fall short on in comparison to traditional MMO questing is they don't give you goals that span very long distances. They don't give you very long-term goals to aim for. An event is very immediate and it's very local. They don't spread across map to map to map. They're not that far-reaching, and you're either going to do the event then and there and hope to be completed within the next, 2 to 15 minutes or so, or you're not really going to do it at all until you return to the area later. I do quite enjoy that in questing. I wouldn't say that I've been missing it too greatly in Guild Wars 2 at the moment, but that is a hole that is there for the game, and I'm curious to see whether people will start looking for that in Guild Wars 2 and be upset that now dynamic events can't quite provide the same thing. Now, having said that, maybe ArenaNet have looked at the same thing, because they did have this system of these treasure maps that do exactly that. It could be a very long way away, this marker on your map, but you would get to this location and be rewarded for it. It falls in as the same kind of feature as the bonus experience feature, that it's a reason for people to go and explore some of these smaller nooks and crannies out in the world that ArenaNet haven't necessarily gone and put a ton of really unique, interesting stuff out for you to find. Now, one last thing to bear in mind with the treasure maps, actually, is that if you look at your achievements, there does seem to be an achievement to do with this, so I'm not actually sure how integral to the gameplay they're really going to be. I would guess from the fact that an achievement exists for finding plenty of these treasures that this actually means there could be a fair few, and it could be something we'll quite frequently be doing in-game, but it's not something I've seen at all in the beta, and I think even the achievement might have said that it was disabled for the beta or unavailable or something like that, so maybe it's a system that they're still working on. It will be interesting to see, though. I guess it all relies on how we actually acquire these things and how commonly we'll be able to get them. I mean, there will definitely be a point where players could be getting too many maps and it would just start to get like a bit of a nuisance, but if they're kind of a little bit rarer and the event that spawns at the end of them, which also happens, by the way, when you activate the map, you don't just open a chest, an event actually spawns for everyone in the area and then they can participate and then they get rewarded. So if it's a bit rarer and the actual outcome of completing this event and getting this reward is pretty good, then I feel like it would be a far more interesting mechanic than if it's just happening all over the place, which maybe being an achievement now suggests that it's going to be more common than uncommon, but we'll see what happens. It all depends how they handle it, but it looks like a cool system. But there you go, guys. That's the Great Guild Wars 2 countdown for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I guess I will see you tomorrow, one day closer to the launch of Guild Wars 2. Hooray!